Welcome back, Waders and Waders, to the channel of the Bush and Doge, where today I'm actually going to do a making of one of my tracks. And I've always wanted to do this. Well, not always, but for quite a while I've wanted to do this, and the only reason I haven't done it yet is that most of my tracks crash right after I make them. Like, almost always they crash at some point. I can't remember the last thing I made that didn't crash at all. So, before I can make a making of it, it crashes. But this one seems to be doing fine, and as it is yet to crash, I'm going to see how far I can get with this making of. I imagine it's going to crash somewhere in the middle of it, but it might not, and I might actually be able to get this whole thing done. So this is probably going to be multiple episodes, because there's a lot to explain, but give you a little listen to the intro. So, first of all, we got these bells. Which, they're just doing chords in E minor. This piece is in E minor. And, it's kind of like an arpeggio. It quickly does all three notes of the chord, but then it goes first, third, second, and then all three again. So it goes like 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then it's kind of like that. And I'll show you the chords in a second, because that's what the next thing's going to be about. But on to how this is actually made. So this bell is synthetic, and I've actually made it myself. I haven't used a preset for this. It is a sine wave with a harmonizer on it, so it has extra harmonics, with the detune set to 5. This detune function is something that I never really used before, because in the past, me messing around with detune has never really worked. It's usually just gotten absolute terrible things. But I didn't realise how this detune works. Basically, it's a multiplier for the gaps in harmonics. So if I make this into a saw wave, I can show you what this is like. So if I turn off the harmonizer, if I set this to 1, if I now set the detune to 2, hopefully at this point you'll know a square wave is a saw wave, but it misses every second harmonic, so it's only the odd harmonics. And of course, you can basically get the same effect by multiplying the gap of the harmonics by 2. So even though I'm using a saw wave right now, I should get something basically that will be a square wave. And as you can hear, it's got a very square sound to it. So let me just set that back to normal. So yeah, so then I put a harmonizer in it to add extra harmonics. I got this, and then I added more. I added more to the multiplier. So there you go. I have got a little bit of stuff going on with the vibrato. It's just quickly going up. So at first there's none of it, and then suddenly there's loads of it. I believe, yeah, there's a volume envelope just to pluck. Is there anything else? Harmonic unison pitch as usual. Usually I just make the first harmonic less unison and maybe a couple of the other ones, and the rest of it is normal. And the turbo 1 harmonic level, obviously making it a sine wave instead of a saw wave. And then also you hear these drums over here. So what's going on here is it's the drums. My mixer here is pretty complex. As you can see, there's this little thing going crazy over here. I'll explain that later on. But all the percussion is getting routed into this one channel. And basically, if you take a look at what's going on here, this is a high pass. mixed with a wet reverb, and that's what's creating that sound. So I'm just high passing the drums in. Then there's also this thing right here, which is pretty simple. In fact, it doesn't even really need to be here, but if you wanted to replicate it, it's an FL keys. I actually don't remember which in E's are. It's playing E's 4 to 2. It's on default, and I don't remember if I messed around with its settings. I know I turned up its hardness, but I don't remember if I did anything else. So you just have to take a look. Then there's the violin fading, which is supposed to be quite subtle, so if you didn't notice, it's fine. Obviously, as you can see, the notes here are very close together, and there's a lot of them. So that obviously creates a bit of discord, because like phase cancellation and all that. But it's only heard for a brief amount of time, and it creates a nice kind of like almost like horror ambience kind of sound to it. And this thing here, I forgot about to turn this on. It's just so that the reverb doesn't stay. So it's like, and it's sucked away. All this stuff at the bottom is just resetting automation so that it's at the right like levels when it gets into it. And then we get the start of like the kind of beat. So, we got these drums, which I'm very happy with. They were kind of the focus of this. They weren't going to be, but in fact this was actually originally going to be an E major instead of minor, and it was going to be a kind of sky theme. But when I made these drums, I thought it would fit a much more jungly theme. And they're very pitch percussion, like, I think all of it is actually pitched here. So there's this rim, which is the kind of clacky sound. There's obviously the kick. And there's the snare, which is made in a very specific way. Of course, the sound is. As you can see, basically all the frequencies except for a little bit around 15 kilohertz and 350 hertz are gone. So it sounds very, very like pitched and just like powerful in its one range where it's like supposed to be. Then there's just this compression going on. It's overall pretty simple. It's just that like I put a lot of detail into it just because the compression of the drums is probably the most important part of like the most important thing you're ever going to put on your mixing track. It has to be right for especially in a genre like dubstep where it's such an important thing. So now you get to have a look at the chords with this weird thing, which is originally a synthetic brass instrument, which I thought well, I'm going to make it all sound all weird, because basically, at first, the idea was I wanted to create a synthetic orchestra kind of thing, and then kind of make it a bit weird and a bit like, you know, less normal, just because that was the idea. This is obviously part of the Paracosm EP, so the idea is it's supposed to be like an imaginary world. So I was thinking, what if it was like in a different universe where like we've made similar instruments, you know, with similar ideas, but the instruments have been made in a different way with different musicians and all that. So anyway, yeah, you can just see what the chords are here. A lot of the notes from this are based off of these chords. This synth is a saw wave with detune 6 divided by 4. I don't really think about these crazily. I just kind of try them out. Like I knew this would have come out with a detune of 1.5 overall, so I just went with it. But I didn't know it was going to sound good or anything. This one actually, a lot of these are actually going to sound different than they do in the real thing, because this is like kind of like my lower detail mode. There's less unison going on and all that. just because it causes lag